Today we're going to go over the low volume test report, filling it out. If you have not already watched the downloading video and how to pre-populate and save the form, you might want to watch that first because this is more of a second in the series. So what we're going to do is we're just going to dive right in where we've saved it, which was in our low volume folder. Go to our test report, open it up. And some of you guys' Adobe may look a little different depending on what version you have, but it all should be the same. I'm going to close this out to give us a little bit more room here. There we go. You still need to be able to fill out the forms once you've saved it. See how I can go into these blue boxes here and fill them out. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to add the date. We want to know the date that you actually did the work on. So today's date, we'll say that we're checking these pumps today. All this is pre-populated. If it does not pre-populate or you fill it out yourself because you're saving blank forms, which is not a problem, just make sure you use the location address where you're at and not like the home office or anything like that. Okay, let's dive in here. We've got the ground tank water levels. That is the actual water levels in the tank. One thing to note is we do not use the Veeder root reading. We use only stick and paste. So when you're doing that, you just write down how much water is in the tank. So let's say 87 did not have any, 93 is a blend, 89 is a blend, and then they had 93. There was none in there. If you had any, we report these in decimals. So let's say, for instance, it was a half inch, then you would say 0.5. And then let's say there was a quarter inch in this one, then you would say 0.25. Okay, just for ease, we're going to make this 0 and 0. We're going to say, let's just say a quarter of an inch in the diesel. There was 0.25 in the diesel. If you had other, you can use this here. This is sort of like a lot of stations you're going to go to will have 87 with and 87 without ethanol, off-road diesel, kerosene. You'll have several different brands. You can use this here, or later on in the video we'll dive into the remarks section. You can also do that there, and we'll discuss that when we get down there too. Okay. The next thing is ground tank identifier. I want to define this real quick. This is just asking, do they use a ground tank identifier? Yes or no. You need to check one of them. Some of the questions we have, though, is what is a ground tank identifier? So I've got one pulled up here. This little metal piece here is a permanent metal piece into the concrete next to where they fill the fuel at. That is considered a ground tank identifier. That is R for regular. You can have R, you can have REG, you can say regular, you can say 87, you can say 87W ethanol. It just needs to be able to make sure that you have whatever product is in there. It has to be permanent and legible. This is permanent. Let me show you an incorrect one. This is not a ground tank identifier. This is not considered a permanent. So they still need to do something, whether it's a color code chart or something, but this is not considered a ground tank identifier. So what we want to know is are they using a ground tank identifier, yes or no? Let's say they don't. Let's say they use color codes on their tank lids. Okay, well, do they have color codes on the tank lids? Yes. All right, now at this point you're just saying which one they use. Do they use color codes on their tanks, or do they use ground tank identifiers? Now, there is some out there that use them both. Some of them have ground tank identifiers, and they also paint them red, blue, green, or whatever. Whatever that they're using is what they need to go by. If it's a ground tank identifier, it still has to be whatever product's in there is that ground tank identifier is identifying it as, or they need to remove it. Okay? It's not asking if they have the color code chart posted or any of that stuff. All we're asking is which one they use. Okay? The next one is road sign. Does it pass or does it fail? One of the things about the road sign is it posting the correct price? Is it advertising the correct product? A lot of times, the biggest problem we'll have is you'll find people posting, like if they have 87 with ethanol and 87 without ethanol, the sign will say regular and it'll be the lower price with ethanol. That's technically not posted correctly. It needs to say, regular with ethanol, or it needs to be the price with that their actual regular is. If you have some confusions, it's in the handbooks. We can go over that at a later time. But that's just road sign. You want to make sure, is it lit? Is it legible? Is all the digits on it working? Is it posting the correct price? There is no law stating that they have to have a road sign. It just says if they have one that it has to work properly. So you want to make sure that it's working properly. So you either say pass or fail on that part of it there. Now if you'll notice here, the little drop down box is actually covering their word a little bit. That's okay, don't worry about that. Once we upload it, this will disappear because it'll lock the form, and you'll see the word just fine. And we're going to go over that in another video later on, okay? All right, next thing is devices at this location in full compliance. You either have a yes or you have a no. Does everything meet the handbooks, the state laws, the federal laws, all those regulations? Does everything there meet all those regulations? The next one is the location identification number. We've already went over that in the first video. That's your ADM number. And then the serviceman ID number. This is me. This is my ID number that I use to log in, so forth and so on. So that covers the top half. Let's jump into the body of the report here. You notice that you have pump, and you have a drop down, and you have P and F. First thing's going to be is the pump. All the pumps have to be identified in some shape, form, or fashion. Most of the people use like pump 1, pump 2. Sometimes I've seen a pump A and a pump B, but most of them number their pumps. So let's just do it a standard way as they're pumping from a regular pump. So we'll say pump 1, and you're going to have a drop down. And your first choice is going to be 87 or 87 with ethanol. Let's say the station only runs ethanol, okay? Once again, don't worry about this drop down box here. It will go away once you upload it and lock it, and you'll be able to read ethanol completely once you upload it. Like I said, we'll go over all that in the future after that. Now, in this column, you want to put down what the calibration is on this. Is it plus 1 cubic inches, minus 1 cubic inches? Everything is going to be assumed in cubic inches unless you otherwise state. So if you come in here and you say 0.5, then we're going to assume that that's plus 0.5 cubic inches. You don't really have to put a plus in front of it if you don't want to, because it's just going to take it right out. You can do a minus. We need you to do a minus. If it is minus, we'll keep a minus. But we don't, the plus, if there's no minus there, then we just assume it's a plus. Now you have the P or F. That's just your pass or fail. Did this pump pass or fail? Did it pass all the inspections? Does it pass does the displays work? Does the auto stop work? Does the anti-drain work? Does everything work on it? You want to say, does it pass or fail? And we're going to say pass. Okay, the next one, you're going to have an option of 89 with ethanol or without ethanol. We're going to say this, keep the flow going with the station being ethanol only. And same thing here. You want to put your calibration factor in here. Let's just say this one was dead on. So we're going to say that. Everything on the pump worked. It passed, okay? Next one is you have a couple of different choices of your premiums. Actually, 90 is not a premium, but you have a couple extra options here. So you can say, 93 with ethanol. Calibration factor on it, let's say, was a minus 0.75 cubic. We'll just say minus 1 cubic inch this time. Okay, and then you'll say pass or fail. You'll either say P or F here. Okay. All right. Let's say you're still on pump 1, and let's say there's a few stations out there that have multiple hoses. Let's say they run these three products out of one hose, and then let's say they have another hose that they're running non-ethanol premium out of it. So you can either leave it blank and then go to the next one, or you can put still pump 1 in there. I'm just going to leave it blank. No, I'll tell you what, let's just put pump 1 in there, and let's just say their premium is non-ethanol there also. So then you're going to say this one was plus 1 cubic inch, and it passed. Okay, you have that option too. Another way you can do this is you have a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. It's still 16. You still have 16 locations. You can do both sides. Let's say you come up here and you're doing pump 17, and you know you're 87. Let's just say they have 3 grades with all ethanol, and it's just a big station. Then you can come in here and say pump 7 was 0, and it passed. 89 octane was, let's just say, minus 1 cubic inch. It passes. And let's say the ethanol 93 was 0, and it passes. Okay? There. You can go down 1 through 16, 17. You can keep going. Okay? Now, this section down here is for your diesel or other. What you want to do is, let's say you have 2 pumps that are low flow diesel. This report is for low flow only, which is under 20 gallons a minute. So if you're at a truck stop or something, you'll need to do a high volume form, which we'll go over in another video. So right now, let's just say they have diesel and off-road diesel, and we'll say pump 1. And then we're going to come in here. Didn't mean to click that there. And let's just say he was 1.5 cubic inches plus. And let's say everything else meets the standards. That's great. You're going to say pump 2 was 0, and it passed. Okay. You have about 13 options here you can go up to. If you run out of space, you can come up in here and use, you know, you can say off road diesel. Okay. And as you notice, the more you write, the smaller the letters get. As you see, it keeps getting smaller and smaller. So try not to write a book in here, because it's going to be unlegible once you get to a certain point. So you can say off-road diesel, and you can say pump, let's say you run out of room here. We're going to call this pump 13. Okay. You can say that it was, you know, 1.5 cubic inches, and it passed. You can get sort of creative with this report. The main thing I tell people is just make sure when you read it or when you fill it out, whoever's reading it, make sure it's easy and legible and understandable. Like maybe the person at the counter can read and understand where all their pumps are on this, or somebody that may not know, like an accountant or something, wants to know how everything's, you know, going with their pumps or whatever. They can read this and understand it. So make sure that you make sure that it's legible. And if you have any questions about how to handle that or whatever, feel free to call us, and we'll help you out with that. Now, down here at remarks, I had talked about up here when we were talking about the ground tank water levels. This is a good time where you can come in here and you can say, you know, 87, no ethanol was water level was, you know, 0.25 inches. Okay. You can also say pump 2 in diesel. Other was off-road. Just make sure that you cover it. So now we know that pump 2 was off-road diesel. What I like to tell everybody is if you do not make a remark, it did not happen. You need to make sure you cover all your bases. If there's a problem, you want to make sure that you report it here so that the device owner will know, what they need to do, if anything needs to be fixed, so forth and so on. Okay. You have to put some sort of remark in here. The report, the system will not let you upload it without a report or a remark on the report. So make sure that you have something in there. Okay. Plenty of room, just like earlier. If you come in here and you put a bunch of letters in here, it will not automatically drop down to the next one. It'll just keep typing. And if you'll notice, it keeps getting smaller and smaller. So it just has like that auto adjust in there. So make sure that you have plenty of room down here. Make sure you utilize it, and because you don't want just everything on one thing so you can't read it. It's too small. Just make sure that you have plenty of space here and fill out as much as you need. Down here at owner operator, this is going to be the person that you're going to talk to that is responsible for their devices. The guy that you're going to say, hey, look, pump number 1 needs a new hose, or, your off-road diesel, the labeling for your off-road diesel is gone. You need to relabel it. Whoever that you're going to talk to as a responsible party is going to be the person that you need to put down here. So his name, we're going to say his name is Mike Smith. All right. Now, once all that's been said and done, you filled everything out, you want to save it. You've got to save. So I'm going to save it. And we're just going to replace it. Yes. All right. Once it's saved, then I can close this out. And I just want to go in here and double check it. Make sure it's been saved. A lot of people have problems filling out these reports and saving them. You do not want to fill them out in your web page. A lot of people will do that and it will not save. And what I'm talking about is, let's say we go to the website and we go to Veriform and I log in. Okay. When I download this report, I'm just going to download a blank report to show you what I'm talking about. All right. I can fill this report out in my web browser. If you notice, we're still in the web browser. Okay? We're still using the internet web browser. A lot of times, you're going to have problems with this thing saving. And if you fill this out and try to save it, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Do not fill it out in this web form. Let's just see what happens. See, I made those changes and it did not save them. So please do not use your web browser. Make sure that you save it. Go to your folder that you have it opened up, that you've saved it to, open it up that way, and use your PDF viewer that's on your desktop and not your web browser. All right, guys. That wraps this up. The next video will be how to upload the form.